Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NURUL binti FAZULIN. So I will present about introduction of human intervention. Definition of human intervention can be different based on its context. It can be either from the aspect of business, international relations, economy and so on. Meanwhile, in the study of industrial relation, human intervention referred to a means to prevent or stop a gross violation of human rights in a state where such state is either incapable or unwilling to protect its own people or is actively prosecuting them. The use of threat of military action by a state beyond borders to handcuff and widespread human rights violation in a state that has not provided approval for the use of force, known as humanitarian intervention. Humanitarian intervention strives to eliminate human rights violation committed by people who are not citizens of the intervening country. Peacekeeping, peace building and development aid do not fit within the concept of humanitarian intervention because they are primarily designed to alleviate the worst type of suffering.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is AZIM Dr. HARITH, metric number 200284448. Now I want to present about key features. There is first characteristic. According to Saban Kardas, 4 factors separate humanitarian intervention from peacekeeping are the use of military force, the absence of the target state approval, the goal of assisting non-national and the intervention agency. Michael J. Mazar argues between two sorts of humanitarian operation, each with a distinct role for military players on the ground. Next, the types. Humanitarian assistance may be divided into 4 categories according to Seaborg. That is aiding with relief distribution, providing security for aid activities, safeguarding the injured person, and lastly, militarily destroying the aggressor. The focus of this analysis will be on humanitarian initiative aimed at achieving the final 2 objectives. Lastly, who and why. Humanitarian intervention refers to act conduct by an organization or organizations, generally a state or a coalition of nations, to alleviate widespread human suffering within a sovereign state's border. Humanitarian intervention can be also in circumstances where there is no functioning government and as a result civil order has broken down. Humanitarian intervention has been a hot topic of discussion among government, international organizations, think tanks and academic disciplines such as international and comparative law, international relations, political science and moral and political philosophy. Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum. So today I want to present about the first humanitarian intervention. The first humanitarian intervention happened during the Greek War of Independence, also known as the Greek Revolution against Ottoman Empire. This war erupted on 25 March 1821. In the 15th and 16th centuries, the Ottoman Empire became one of the strongest empires in the world, with territories of power stretching from the Balkans, the Middle East, North Africa to Southern Europe. It also managed to control some of the regions such as Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Algeria and most of the Arabian Peninsula, as well as Austria, Ukraine and Greece. However, the colonization of the Ottoman Empire in Greece lasted for about 4 centuries after the defeat of Byzantium in 1453. In 1611, Dionysius Kyriosopus and his followers led a revolution in Epirus. The Ottomans fell in the Battle of Vienna in 1683 and their forces were defeated by European kingdom, followed by rapid defeats by Austria, Russia and Persia. The Ottomans were defeated in their battle with Russia and they were forced to sign the Kujuk-Kainarja Treaty in Russia's favor, in which Russia gained some Ottoman controlled land and claimed all Orthodox Christians in its domain. The Ottomans' loss provided new prospect for great resistance in the Peloponnese in 1770 during the Russia War. The Ottoman Empire gradually lost power as a result of the growing number of Greeks of all classes desiring independence, aided by Hellenism or the spirit of Greek nationalism. Furthermore, the influx of Western revolutionary ideology, which increased the Greek people's awareness of Hellenism and encouraged them to obtain independence. This led Europe to step in and offer to mediate between the Ottomans and the Greeks, suggesting the formation of an autonomous Greek state, which the Ottomans rejected. Following this denial, Britain, France and Russia deployed naval conflicts to never know. The Ottomans, who had lost their authority in Greece, forced European countries to meet in London, resulting in the London Protocol, which declared Greece an independent monarchical state under their protection on February 3, 1830.
My name is FARAH AZZAHRA and I will talk about the impact of humanitarian intervention. There are several cons of humanitarian intervention. The first one is to protect civilians. The main goal of humanitarian intervention is to put an end to atrocities and human rights violations. Humanitarian intervention can prevent assault on people by removing unjust regime from power, reduce the ability of government and armed groups to commit crimes, or destroying military gear. Humanitarian intervention also provide a shelter for citizens who had fled conflict. The second benefit is it allows humanitarian aid to be sent to civilians. Aid can be hard to reach people when they are stuck between conflict and war that happen. Humanitarian intervention have advantage of driving back and create a safer zone for humanitarian aid. Therefore, it's a win for humanitarian intervention that use military force against such group because it helps in the process of sending aid to people. Lastly is to bring war criminals and human rights violators to be held accountable. Although it's not easy to bring war criminals to justice, humanitarian intervention has created a precedent that assault on people and violation human rights legislation will not go unpunished. It also serves as a means for regimes and organizations who commit crime to be held accountable. Although humanitarian intervention have benefit side, it also gives negative impact as well. One of the negative impact of HI is that there are more lives of civilians may perish. Even though the main goal of HI is to avoid more human rights violations, military operations in countries frequently result in further killing. Civilians are banding together to oppose the invading army that attack their country, and this may lead to bloodshed. Humanitarian intervention could be a reason for increasement of war and violence but could reduce it simultaneously. Other than that, for the government to launch military operation for humanitarian intervention is extremely expensive. Huge sum of money must be committed in order to carry it out. There will be millions of dollars spent on military equipment. This is an addition to the requirement to have armies, air forces and navies to be on alert and capable of projecting military power over the world. The high cost of humanitarian intervention is significant disadvantage.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ZULAIKHA. So I would like to continue the presentation for the next part, which is the case study of humanitarian intervention in 21st century. For your information, there are still a few humanitarian initiatives in our world in the 21st century. For example, Iraqi no-fly zone. The second Persian Gulf War, sometimes known as the Iraq War, was a battle in Iraq that lasted from 2003 until 2011. The first was a short, conventionally fought war in March to April 2003, when a combined force of US and UK soldiers, along with smaller contingents from a variety of other countries, entered Iraq and rapidly decimated Iraqi military and paramilitary forces. It was followed by a longer second phase, during which an insurgency fought against the US-led occupation of Iraq. Following a reduction in violence in 2007, the United States gradually decreased its military presence in Iraq, finally departing entirely in December 2011. Some supporters of the Iraq War 2003 to 2011 referred to it as a humanitarian intervention, indicating how broad the phrase had become. Next, I will explain about how does the media influence humanitarian intervention. Through these channels, humanitarian action in modifying disaster response and management can be influenced. We are increasingly relying on information and communication technology (ICTs) to help us have a significant influence on our environments and respond to the various difficulties we face. Consider how people all around the globe are increasingly utilizing social media during disasters, and how the amount of online information they create, coupled with absolute institutional information system, makes it easy for humanitarian organizations to get overwhelmed with digital data. Making sense of all that massive data is crucial, and as social media information technologies grow more user-centric, we should expect the usage of digital volunteers to become more common in humanitarian disaster response. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
In conclusion, a humanitarian intervention occurs when military action is used against a country infringing of its sovereignty in order to protect civilians and end human rights abuses. Throughout the history, humanitarian intervention have happened. However, many recent military attempts to stop atrocities have failed, with some even provoking additional conflict and murder. As a result, some individuals are beginning to doubt the value of humanitarian aid. When faced with a humanitarian situation that requires their attention, political leaders must decide whether or not to intervene, and if so, how to do so. Intervention can only be justified as the right reaction from a practical and ethical position if the action is likely to succeed. It is stated that an intervention is considered a success if it saves more lives than could have been saved without it. It is difficult to foresee the outcome of intricate project under the best of circumstances, and the turmoil of politically caused humanitarian crisis is hardly ideal. Although no event can be foreseen with accuracy, lessons can be gained from past experience and appropriately applied to the future ones. That's all from us. Thank you very much.